Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Matt. Matt, how you doing over there tonight?
Hey, Mark, I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm living the dream, man. I'm living the bourbon life.
That's right. You are the bourbon life. Someone's got to do
it. Somebody's got to live this life, right, man? Come on. No, man, we were just talking about Memorial Day. We just got through that weekend. Jesus, it was like the coldest Memorial Day we've had in Lexington since like 1880 something.
Yeah, I saw that. Our local forecaster, Chris Bailey, posted it on that. It was the lowest high in like the last 100 and something that anybody currently in Lexington has ever seen.
Awful. I was at the lake and I'm like, this is miserable. So we called it a day and we did not enjoy ourselves.
Oh, no ice fishing?
No ice fishing. That's for you Michigan guys, man. I'm going to leave it to you to handle that, right?
Nads.
Yeah, there you go, man. All right. So, hey, we do have a Barrel Society member birthday this week, Keith Schaller. So I need to give him a shout out. So happy birthday, Keith.
Hey, happy birthday, Keith.
Yeah, man. Hope you have a great one. And I also need to thank our sponsors, the Stave Restaurant out there in Millville, Kentucky, making some great food. They're located conveniently between Woodford Reserve and Castle and Key. So if you're out there on McCracken Pike, check those guys out. Chef Kyle Klatka making just some great food out there. So stop by and see them, visit them online, thestavekentucky.com, and also on Instagram, Facebook. And then also 3 Chord Bourbon. We appreciate their sponsorship as well and all the products that they're putting out. We really love what they're doing. Ari Sussman, their master blender up there. Just I call him a mad scientist, man, because he's doing some great work. So we appreciate their sponsorship as well. Matt, with that said, man, we've paid the bills. You want to tell everybody who we have with us tonight?
Absolutely. We got a duo on with us tonight here. Joining us.
Dynamic.
That's right. We'll see how dynamic here once we get to round 3. You never know what's happening. But we've got Mike Paladini, the CEO and founder, and also Danny Polise, the COO and founder of Penelope Bourbon. Gentlemen, welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast.
All right. Yeah. Thank you guys for having us. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Happy to have you, man. We put you on the spot now, starting you out with the dynamic duo. So
dynamic duo. And by the way, Matt, I got to commend you. You're one of the first people to nail Danny's last name.
I gotta say, Mark coached me through it. I think Mark did the research, and he coached me through because he's actually set me up before with mispronouncing somebody's last name, and I look like a giant horse's
good
ass.
Start already, guys.
Man.
Nailing these last names like it's a Friday.
Man. That's right. We're good. We're good with that, man. No, we like to make sure because I felt bad because we had Alan Bishop and Jolie Kasperzik, right, Matt? It's Kasperzik, but I thought it was Kasparzik. From Spirits of French Lick. Yeah, screwed that one up. I led Matt down the wrong path, man. And she was like, well, I'm happy you've decided to change my last name. And I was like, oh, shit, did we really just, So, man, I'm very careful about that now. So, guys.
You got Bishop right.
Yeah. Well, guys, let's set the bar pretty low, but.
You set it low, yeah. Let's jump in. We talked about this a few seconds ago before we got on, but we forget to talk about what we're drinking. So let's go ahead and do that. I guess we should have cleared it with you guys. I thought we'd start with your 4 grain bourbon, the 80 proofer. I thought obviously that's going to be the good place to start. So, but with that said, do you guys want to just jump in, kind of tell us what we got here?
I mean, that's our flagship, our traditional straight bourbon whiskey 4 grain. When we came to market, from Danny and I's perspective, I think we wanted to do something a little bit different. And quite frankly, when we came out with that product, I mean, there was not many 80 proofs on the market. So we wanted to come out with something that was light, easy drinking, a little bit more approachable. And sorry, we got the real Penelope making an appearance right now, and my dog barking. So, Penelope, I'm on a podcast here, but really that was the idea. This is a blend of 3 different bourbon mash bills from MGP, aged. Basically, the barrels are about 33 months old, and we blend in the 45 wheat bourbon, the 21 rye, and the 99 corn.
Okay, so it's a blend of those 3 different mash bills coming in at 80 proof and 2 to 3 years. And this is non-chill filtered, right?
It's a non-chill filtered, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, Penelope, I can tell she's off camera, man. She's dying to get part of the show, right? So,
Sorry about that, guys.
No, you don't have to
No,
apologize, man. We
can. Do you guys mind starting this over? This is going to be. Come on, Carrie, just bring it up to bed. Oh my God.
No, man, we're all good. Don't worry about it, Mike. Yeah, hey, you know what? We're all, we have kids, or I had kids. I mean, they're older now, but I know how it is, man. So you don't have to worry about that, dude. We're all good. Our listeners understand how things work, man. So,
and Danny, we've done about 100 of these. I don't think that's ever happened. Literally tonight, the one that we've been out on the calendar that we made you guys wait for. I feel really bad. Sorry, but no, it doesn't bother me. I just felt bad. It's the witching hour right before.
There's no Penelope, so it's okay.
Yeah, and if you're in Kentucky, you just put a little bit of that Penelope bourbon in the bottle, and then you wouldn't have to worry about it.
I know, but really, that 4 grain was our only product when we first launched.
Yeah,
for us, we wanted to just create an easy drinking, kind of an approachable 80 proof. So whether you're, big into whiskey and you just needed something light, easier to sip, or it was you're new to this, new to the category.
Right.
And,
right.
Danny and I on that first trip to MGP, we kind of came up with this blend. It was a blend of 3 different mashes from MGP, the 21 rye, the 99 corn, and the 45 wheat. And that's kind of how we kind of kicked off this journey.
Very nice. Matt, what do you pick up on this, man, on the nose?
So was the goal always to be 80 proof, or did you try a couple other lower proofs, like from the 80 to 86 range, somewhere in there? Or was it always, we want to be 80 and that's where we're going with this?
Danny, you want to take that?
It was 80, when we went down that first time, 80 was on the mind, and that was the intent, to come up with like a good, strong 80 proof that kind of stood out. Something that people that loved whiskey could drink, people that were new to the category could drink. And I know you mentioned something about non-chill filtered. That was a big thing for us, kind of the filtering, because a lot of people, they don't realize, like, sometimes when this gets cold, it clouds up, and why that happens, right?
Right.
But we experimented with some chill filtering. It strips it of flavor, and we wanted to leave that in there. So I think kind of like sometimes when you have like a tea, like an iced tea, you see some of like that tea in the juice. Well, this is, if you see a little haze, that's flavor in there that's in there. It only happens when you put an ice cube in and it gets cold. But
right.
So we don't chill filter it. We kind of just leave it natural and full of flavor.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's a big thing. A lot of people, I think, don't realize, well, I think more people now, more so than before, but, people would either put their bourbon in the freezer or they add some ice cubes, and then it would turn cloudy, and they thought, oh, something's wrong with my bourbon. It's gone bad, or it's spoiled. Not realizing that it's just the fact that it's that interaction with the ice, the coldness, and the those fatty oils and acids and things that are in there, I guess, that start to not crystallize, but they just cloud up. It clouds your bourbon. So some people don't realize. Starts to flock. There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
Very nice.
Yeah.
There you go, Matt. Very nice. See,
and also too, for us, I think when we started out, I think from a sales perspective, I think you want to always have like a kind of a clear kind of focus. And when you look at the market, we kind of looked at basils as, if you're thinking about 80 proofs, I was like, it's hard to convert a Jim Beam consumer or a Jack Daniel's consumer. You kind of look at where you might be able to start taking some pre-existing consumers away from, especially if you're really in, when we started out really in 2019, like really hammering on the in-store tastings, where we started noticing you could really convert, you can swap out some of those basil consumers, which has a little bit more of a rye forward profile to ours, which is a little bit sweeter, higher corn, higher wheat. And, that's kind of been the focus with that product. It's our number one selling product too.
Nice. So the goal then was to go after those drinkers. Well, let me ask the question: was the goal then to go after bourbon drinkers, or was it to go after drinkers maybe of Scotch or other whiskeys that maybe wanted to get into bourbon?
Actually, I don't even think we really knew in the
No,
beginning.
that's fine.
Because I'll be honest with you, Danny and I mean, we're from New Jersey. We weren't, we loved whiskey. We love bourbon, obviously, but we weren't so deep into the community like we are now. And, for us, I think we just wanted to create something that we personally enjoyed. And so on that first trip to MGP, I mean, kind of having no outside experience and truly kind of that deer in headlights, like we went in there, completely with a consumer palate. Do we like it? Yes.
Right.
Okay. And that's a good basis for a product. And, I think if we went to MGP now, and we've talked about this before, Danny and I, if we went to MGP now, you start overcomplicating it. It's like, well, it's 3 different mashes and you got the supply chain and the availability and the pricing and all this stuff, all these moving parts. But really in the beginning, we were just like, we like it. So that's a good baseline. And then really that evolved as we started getting into market, that started to evolve, and really hone in on exactly who that was for.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's talk about you guys. How in the world did you guys get into, I mean, you're Jersey guys, right? I mean, you don't normally think that of bourbon in New Jersey, right? So how did you guys get into it? What was it that brought you into the bourbon and whiskey industry?
Well, Mark, before we get into it, we started talking about the bourbon and we didn't go there yet.
Because you went into a question.
I did. That's my own fault. Sorry, gentlemen.
It was your fault, man. I set you up and you're like, wait, but before we do that, Mark, let me ask a question.
And I never got to circle back around. So before we go down that road, I want to give our listeners a chance to hear some impressions on this. So I think the nose is really bright. I really like the nose that's coming off it. It's got a lot of bright flavors. I pick up like orange peel. I pick up a little bit of pepper, some honey, and also like thyme, something herbal. I'm get like thyme or like a fresh lemon thyme coming off of it as well. And the corn comes through, the sweetness. It's like frosted flakes on the nose, man, as well.
That's what I was going to say. That reminds me that just the corn coming through, but that sweetness that combines with it. It's like a nice big bowl of frosted flakes, man. Mm-hmm. I absolutely love that on the nose. So guys, Matt's my expert on the tasting in the nose. So what did he miss?
I love frosted flakes. I think he nailed it.
Nailed it.
I don't really think you get, all of our expressions are a little bit more subtle. I think that's from the blend. So you're never going to get and also the age of our barrels at, where we're at as a business. And so I think you're always going to get those kind of just more subtle notes. And I think you're going to see that with Matt was saying, with the corn and the wheat in particular really coming through, getting some of those sweetness and that kind of frosted flake. I can completely see. I've actually heard that before from someone, but I just can't put a pulse on it where it was from. It was a while ago though, probably 3 or 4 months ago.
And especially at that 80 proof, you'll get those notes, and you'll see it changes as you use this blend at different proofs. It evolves, and you get different notes. You might pull the rise on some of our other expressions, but
that makes sense. So when you blended these 3 together, was there a certain combination you went in thinking this is what we want to blend together, or was it just that this is just kind of how it worked out, and what you said earlier, that this is what we like from a consumer perspective? This was what just tasted good.
We were like deer in headlights when we walked in that room, and they were just like,
nobody gave us the memo on blending. Put it that way. I thought it was just like, dude, take that one, and that one, put it in a bottle, and let's go sell it. And man, we had some. We knew there was going to be some pretty steep learning curve. It's just aside from, the blending was a huge blind spot. Again, we had no experience in this, like completely none,
right.
Zero. I remember going to our first bottling line in Louisville. I'm like, all right, guys, let's get it done. And they're like, well, what's your process? I'm like, what do you mean? I thought that's what you guys are up with.
Put the bourbon in the bottle. Let's go.
Yeah,
all right.
Bourbon in the bottle, and let's, time is money.
Yeah, that's a barrel.
And then we changed bottlers at one point, and show up at the next place, and they're like, all right, here's 2 guys on a forklift.
Yeah.
We're like, all right, roll up the sleeves. Let's get this done.
Yeah.
And we knew we wanted to be fully ingrained in it. Like, it was okay that we're contracting out our blending and bottling. but we knew we were going to be at every run. We're there all the time, constantly like looking at bottles, looking at things like that. But we knew it was going to be a little bit of an uphill battle. I mean, our first order with MGP was 6 barrels.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I think they were a little disappointed with that. Kind of didn't let on to that when I was gave him that initial call. Kind of like made it seem like, hey, you know, come in there, we're going to test a lot of stuff. Like made it seem like some big thing. And I'm like, I'm going to raise you guys 6 barrels. How does that sound?
There we go. They're like, okie dokie, thanks, guys.
We had issues. I mean, half of our first batch was really a tough batch. I mean, I don't think we even could do much with it. We didn't even sell half our first batch because we had just so many issues.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Hmm.
So back to that question, Matt, that I was asking. Now that you've had your share.
Go ahead.
So how was it that you actually got in then to the industry? What made you decide, hey, we want to make a bourbon? So, I mean, what was that? How'd that process happen?
Well, Danny and I, you know, we grew up together. We were next door neighbors growing up in New Jersey, excuse me. And, you know, my wife and I, we were trying to have kids for a really long time. You know, that kind of starts to wear on you, you know, just emotionally and everything like that. And, you know, Danny and I, we love bourbon. And Carrie and I, when we had, you know, said if we have a girl, we wanted to name her Penelope. And after, you know, many years, we finally find out. And, you know, I think it was just one of those mixed emotion things. Like it's my whole world's changing, our world's changing, my wife and I. And I just was like, man, Penelope Bourbon, it's got such a good ring to it. And it's different. And I always kind of said, whatever everyone's doing, let's just do the opposite. And, you know, I just think, look, I think where we're at, I just think from just a pure branding perspective, it's kind of completely out there from what the traditional whiskey world is like from a branding and a lot of this masculinity. And, you know, for us, I don't think we were necessarily marketing towards females. I just think we're a little bit more gender inclusive from a brand perspective. And I remember I just said, I love this. I'm going to go for it. I mean, I was working in tech. Danny is an engineer building bridges, like, you know, in the city and stuff like that. I just called him. I said, I got a +1 to MGP. I'm like, you go? And he's like, yeah, I'm in. And we've been just kind of went with it. And we didn't really have high expectations. We were just going to start small. And if it ended up being just something like a hobby, cool. But, you know, we were going to put our, you know, our best effort forward for sure and try to see what we can put together.
So Danny, you were a +1 and now has become the COO. So how'd that play?
Yeah, when he called me, I mean, he had the idea, like the branding kind of vision behind it, and where he wanted to go with it, and you know, he was like, let's go down and let's taste through these bourbons and see what they got, and I was like, hell yeah! I remember coming out of that meeting, I was so on board. You know, it was just like, you know, we created that blend, and it was like you kind of you taste it, you feel it. And then it was like, okay, we might have bourbon, you know, now what? All right, we need bottles, we need labels, we need, you know, there's the 3-tier system, there's all this other stuff. And like, that's where like the engineering itch like got into me. It was like, how do you build something? How do you create something?
Yeah. And one more thing I got to add on that. I can't also, okay, the outsourcing MGP that's more of a supply chain, right? You're just bringing different things into a kind of a supply chain and getting, you know, having that engine run. Where I was really kind of like what do we do is like warehousing, like state regulations, TTB. Right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of the things we did, and I don't know, I don't think many companies do. I think some do it, but we just went ahead and just started going on government websites and like just filling out the paperwork and getting our own first it was a basic wholesaler permit with the TTB. They used to know me because I'd call and always check in. No attorneys, no nothing. We did it all. And I would call and we finally got that. Then we got our wholesaler permit in New Jersey, which was like a total disaster. It took like a year, about a year from the time we started to the time we got it. To this day, we do all of our own state permits, our product registrations, warehousing, kind of we control that end of it. And it's been a huge help for us just kind of knowing, okay, we're going into Connecticut, new product launch. We need to price post this 45 days in advance. And, you know, there's a whole process with it. And that's been really helpful because that saves a lot of money. A lot of folks will go to, you know, some of these third-party companies that handle a lot of the back office. And that's been a big big help for us, especially because we're sourcing.
Right. Well, as an attorney, I'll just advise you that you need to get an attorney.
Yeah, that's really funny, Mark. You're really funny. No, yeah, we there's certain ones that are a little bit more complicated as we kind of started to get into it more.
Sure.
Especially with like distributor agreements and things like that. Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, I can't imagine, man, because I started this podcast last year, and the learning curve just to start a podcast to me was pretty steep, but I can't imagine what you guys went through.
Yeah, the learning curve to learn how to put out a podcast about bourbon is probably nothing compared to the learning curve about bourbon.
No kidding. Yeah, no kidding. I just can't imagine, man.
Yeah, and I think for us though, one of the things we've always said is like we are who we are. I mean, this is it. I mean, like I think it's been kind of fun. Like we're starting our own store. Like a lot of these heritage brands have all this great history, and it's just unbelievable. We don't have that. So I think what's been kind of fun for us is we're just starting it now. And I think it's like, maybe, if we're around for a while and which we hope we are, kind of seeing that path from start to finish. I mean, we founded the company when my wife was 4 months pregnant. Penelope, you heard her having a little bit of a meltdown. She's 2.5. Danny's had a son, Cooper, who's now 2. And both of our wives are expecting. Danny's having twins in early August, and we're having a boy at the end of August. So,
wow, congratulations!
It's going to be interesting because we got a lot of bottling runs coming up this summer.
Yeah, definitely, congratulations. That's a handful, man. Be doing what you're doing and having young kids. That's pretty impressive. You guys were able to do that. No doubt about it. So, Matt, let's get back and talk a little bit about the bourbon because we're actually toward the end here of round 1 already. What are you thinking? What are you getting on the palate and the finish on this?
It's got a really sweet palate. I think the frosted flakes really comes through. The corn comes through with that as well. I get a lot of honey too. And like something a little herbal as well. I'd mentioned on the nose that maybe like some thyme or some sort of like not so much mint, but there's something herbal with it. Not like a tea or something strong like that, but a nice like lemon thyme or like a lemongrass or something like an orange herbal flavor coming through with it as well. It drinks really well. I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I agree. The what you said, the corn or the frosted flakes, that still kind of stands out, just that sweetness, but the honey as well. I understand what you're saying on the herbal part of it too. And it's not like a tea where you get like a black tea or something where it's a little bit bitter or a little bit drying at the end. You don't get that at all. The sweetness continues on. I still get a nice little, it's not a huge kick of spice, but there is a little bit of spice on the finish on this one for me. So, coming from a perspective of consumer, Mike, like you talked about earlier, when you're looking at how you're going to do the blend, to me, I think this would be a wonderful, we'll call them a gateway bourbon, just to expose someone to the world of bourbon that hasn't had that exposure before, and you get them interested in trying bourbon. I think this has a lot of neat characteristics to it. And I think it's easily approachable for somebody that doesn't have a whole lot of experience in the bourbon world.
Yeah, it's kind of, I call it like a round table bourbon, or like a party, you bring it to a party, like everybody seems to be able to appreciate it in some way.
Right.
And kind of go through it pretty quickly.
Yeah. I mean, you take that risk where you start with a bourbon, you don't know exactly what you're doing. You think, how's this going to work out? But I mean, you guys have done a really good job on this. I mean, it's really a good bourbon. And again, for someone that isn't an experienced drinker, or even if they are, this would be a very easy drink. And this is one that I could see you could easily drink a lot of this and not realize it, So very, very good.
Yeah, we don't really talk about this. This was one thing we were dabbling with when we first created. I was like, it's like, do we go into this whole, when you're sub 90, depending on the content, I mean, you run the chance that, per 1.5 ounces, it could be under 100 calories. Now, I know most folks, it's not a big deal, and we don't really talk about that much. I think maybe we have like a mention of it on our website somewhere. But the reason why I bring it up is, you can have a couple of these and there's nothing, you're going to wake up feeling okay. Whereas if you have barrel strength or something with a little bit higher ABV,
right,
there's more sugar and it's just going to impact you a little bit differently. This is for the next day. We're talking about productivity the following day. So it's a little bit different, but our favorite thing with that one, it's like we mix it. Like our favorite drink is just strawberry lemonade with Penelope. It's a great summer cocktail.
Huh. Yeah. Delicious. That sounds, I have to try that. I've been experimenting with new cocktails, so I'll definitely have to give that one a try. So Matt, final thoughts on the 80 proof Penelope.
It's fun to drink this and just compare and contrast with like another 80 proofer that we brought up earlier in Basil Hayden that Mike, you had talked about. I think when I hear 80 proof, that's the name that comes to mind, and this couldn't be much further and different from it. Yeah, so it's fun to taste. I like a lot of the youthful notes on this, so much more flavor. It's not to the point where it's starting to pick up and get drowned out by a whole lot of oak. It's got a lot of those really fun flavors. Just a really great sipping bourbon. You did a really great job with the blend on it.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Definitely. All right, guys, I'll tell you what, let's take a break real quick and get a word from our sponsor, and we'll come back for round two. So everybody just sit tight. We'll be back with more with Mike Paladini and Danny Polise in just a minute. Hey, Bourbon Lifers. When you're out hunting for those hard-to-find bottles or just enjoying the distilleries of Central Kentucky, you're going to work up an appetite. And when it's time to refuel, we suggest that you visit our good friends Rebecca and Eric Burnworth at the Stave Restaurant. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, close to Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, the Stave Restaurant is just off the beaten path, nestled on the banks of Glens Creek. With a newly redesigned menu, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day featuring an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. You can take our word for it. The food alone is worth the trip to the Stave. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. And you can even purchase bottles of bourbon to take home with you while you're there. Make sure to follow the Stave on Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky, or visit them online at thestavekentucky.com to stay up to date on everything that's going on. The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise, right here in the heart of bourbon country. All right, everybody, welcome back for round, session, period, whatever you want to call it, number 2 of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, still here, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Matt. Matt, you are my good friend, man. What are you laughing about? Come on, dude.
No, hey, I'm still here as well, Mark. I wouldn't miss this for anything, man. You doing good?
Of course, after spending 7 hours in the car with you on the round trip to Nashville last weekend to record with Pennington's, I don't know that good friend really maybe.
What was my deal? What was wrong with me?
I'm just kidding, Matt.
I mean, I wasn't that gassy.
Had a great time. All right, man. So we're having a good time tonight, and you want to tell everybody who we have with us, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. We've got the founders and the gentlemen from Penelope Bourbon, Mike Paladini and Danny Polise here, and we have got poured up for round 2 your new small batch barrel strength bourbons. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about that before we get too far into this segment here?
Yeah, no, we were excited about it. So, as a growing company, we're constantly trying to figure out our forecasting and our inventory and things of that nature. And as you're growing, you're just, starting to there's a lot of things to figure out. So probably middle of summer of last year, we've always had our own finished goods warehouse in New Jersey. Basically, we would bottle at Castle and Key, strong spirits, and sometimes for certain products in Bardstown. And when they would finish, they would actually come to New Jersey, and that's where our product would be picked up from our facility. Well, it just happened that, our facility used to be this old chemical alcohol factory. So it had a lot of the kind of some of the more structural compliance pieces that you would need for a DSP. So we went ahead in the summer, got our DSP, probably got all the paperwork finished and got the actual the license probably end of the summer of last year.
Nice.
With the notion that we wanted to put together just a small batch blending and bottling line. And this was really meant to number one was R&D. As you're growing, it was just getting tricky, not having being that we needed to be really close to the barrels from an R&D perspective. We kind of had this thought that some of these more customized like barrel programs or custom blends or, these toasted things like that, from a store pick perspective, they were going to be becoming more and more popular. I mean, they've already been popular, but like really hitting a tidal wave. And we just wanted to have that capacity in-house. And two, Danny being an engineer, and I think we just wanted to, after doing 15 batches, with some great partners that really kind of showed us the ropes, we felt that we, had the ability to put something together in a really cost-effective line. And so small batch, long story short, I was just kind of give the background on it. So we had batch 6 of our barrel strength come out. That came out early April, basically April 1st. And we're on program. How it all kind of came about is we're on with our distributor in New Jersey. We're on program, so the folks kind of have to sell our product, and we didn't have any of our product. So I turned to Danny. I said, "Well, we're gonna have to kind of stop the production. We just opened the bottling line April 1st. We started running some private selects, and we did our first small batch." And so on average, our barrel strength runs are approximately 75 to 125 barrels. And this particular small batch was 10 barrels.
Okay.
We did it entirely in-house in New Jersey. We have some kind of fun, funky stuff in the warehouse. Like we have like some 8-year, 49% malted barley bourbon. I was like, let's just tinker. Let's have fun. This was a fun, just have fun with it. We've only used the same 3 mash bills since we started. So this was an opportunity for us to have a little bit more of an exploratory track. Sure. And so we didn't do anything with the label. It's actually our barrel strength label. However, we did do SB01 as a call out. Will that change down the line? I don't know. But I mean, it was just something for us to get product out. And it was our first barrel strength out of our facility that we did.
Very nice.
That 8 years, a little salt and pepper on the blend, just to kind of give it, a little nuance to it. But these small batches are really, they're interesting. They're tough. Every single barrel matters a lot, in that blend, and affects it so much. I remember we couldn't, with the batch, we couldn't. Something was off. We kept tinkering with the ratios, whatever. We hand selected the barrels for that batch, but then it was all right, back to the drawing board, and then go back out and being able to just pull barrel samples right away, and then kind of swap out barrels as needed to really hone in on the blend was so important. And another reason why, or another reminder of why it's so important to even have this place that we have now, the DSP.
So when you guys started doing this, I mean, you started out with the 80 proof, right? And then you met with MGP. I mean, did you know from the beginning that's just where you wanted to go? I mean, it was MGP. That's how you guys wanted to do things.
No, I'll be honest with you. No, I mean, they picked up the phone.
They answered.
I'll tell you though, but having gone down the path, no, I cold called MGP. I had reached out to a few other folks. I'll be honest though, and now I've gone through it. Danny and I personally really like MGP.
Okay.
The other thing about them is we've built up such an incredible rapport with their team. We talk to their master blender, man, once or twice a week. We're just really, we've had the opportunity to purchase barrels from and we've only worked with MGP. Not to say that we haven't looked at other folks and looking at, custom distillate and custom mashes and things like that, but they've been a great partner of ours, mentors, right. Partners. We're bootstrapping this business. We don't have outside capital where we can just go and purchase 5,000 barrels. So, for them to, give us an aged barrel agreement where we've got barrels in our name and we don't have to, lay down the cash for them until we dump them has been helpful for us. And they did that partly from a relationship perspective. So yeah, we're happy with it. It's been amazing, actually, to be honest with you.
So they are barrels that are MGP produced. They're not, I mean, that's a bad way to ask that question. It's not something they're distilling for you all. They're not contract distilling for you guys. Is that right? Or are they now at this point?
Everything we've done to this point has been one of their mash bills. They're produced mash bills and nothing custom yet. We've talked about maybe doing that, but when we actually do something like that, a lot of thought has to go into it before we start putting down barrels of our custom mash.
Gotcha. So we talked earlier, you said your daughter's 2.5 years old. So obviously Penelope Bourbon grew out of the fact that you're having a daughter. So the name came up. So you guys are, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you're pretty young, right? So what, 2018, somewhere around there?
We started, well, I've kind of look at our official launch was September 2019.
Oh, okay. All right.
But Danny and I, we started selling it from our car in March of 2019.
Just driving around and selling, man. You got to do it.
I was moving boxes in those early days. We had QuickBooks, and it was like just driving around New Jersey. I think I might have been the only bourbon seller. Like I just was like, no, I got bourbon. And I just go to my car, be like, you want it? Have them try it. They'd sign QuickBooks on my phone, and
that was it.
Yeah, it was great. It was great because they're used to getting their deliveries on Fridays or whatever. So like you'd be in the store, they agree to take it, and be like, "No, I'll be right back with the case."
Like, "Oh, it's not going to deliver it." I'm like, "No, I can't. It's too much to come back. It's like a 45-minute drive. Just take it now."
So then it got to the point where like we were getting like these bigger customers. Like we landed the airport here, and
no pun intended,
and
landed the airport. Yeah.
And to make the deliveries, you had to do it between like 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. And you literally were driving on the runways to like bring it to like the warehouse. And I'm in like my car. And every time I pull up, they'd be like, "Oh, you need a commercial vehicle." And I would slap like a magnet on the side. They'd be like, "Oh, Penelope Bourbon." I'm commercial. And it was like, I think we need a distributor at this point.
Yeah.
Right. But you said you had your own distributor's license, right? Is that what you said earlier, Mike? That's what, yeah. So
that's how we got set up. It was all wholesale, basic TTB wholesaler permit. You need that to buy barrels. And then it was in New Jersey, just every state's got a different kind of permit for it. But in New Jersey, it's a little bit trickier. Like we had to get our wholesaler permit, which we actually still have to this day. So things coming out of our DSP are a bottling and rectifying permit out of New Jersey.
Okay.
And then things that we do at Castle and Key, we'll still route those through our wholesaler permit.
Gotcha. So with the small batch, what was your goal in terms of your flavor profile? Did you have one, or again, was it just where you said from a consumer's perspective, what you thought might go over well? What kind of drove that process for you guys?
I know the base blend without the malted barley bourbon, the driver was really like the selected barrels that we got, just kind of going towards whatever was best for those, because it's 3 different mash bills. So just blending those together, finding whatever we had out of the barrels, and then finding the best barrels out of there that thought went together the best.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. So then moving forward, then obviously then the small batch could be different from batch to batch, right? I mean, that's kind of the way it's going to work out, I assume, or is it something that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we were working on, small batch 2 last week, and it was just different group of barrels, different batches, different MGP batches.
Right.
And just kind of pulling out the barrels that, had the best profiles there, and then putting them into the small batch circle and working with those. Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I mean, I was really just going to say, this product was born out of just growing pains. We, especially in New York, New Jersey, we're with some bigger distributors. And when I'm hammering them, trying to get on, it's what they call is program goal. And that's where with the big guys, that's what Diageo is on every month, where they're constantly selling. When you get on goal, that's really hard for a craft. I'm competing with Pernod, Diageo, Constellation to get on that slate. So when I get on it with Empire and Fedway, you got to have product or else you're never going to get back on the list. So it was really born out of us, and now, we did it. Look, we had to do small batch 02 because Fedway we fired through 01.
Wow.
And so I think we're still learning. Look, I think this is a stopgap. I think Danny and I love the fact that we're able to get creative with a smaller amount of barrels. I think since we've had the facility, I think this product is just going to continually improve and get better. Well, if we productize it to, maybe it's like small batch barrel strength. It's a, different type of label. But for now, I think it was just really a stopgap to help with some inventory issues. And it's something we both love doing.
Yeah.
I don't think we're just got to figure out a process around it, I think, is what we need to do.
And you don't have to get in your car and go out and deliver it anymore, right?
I miss those days, though. I love
that. Oh man, that's the best part of the whole deal, right? So, so let's talk about your bottles and things, man. You kind of alluded to that earlier, and the 80 proofer that we drank, it had the white label, I believe, right, Matt? You've got that bottle with you, with the white label, the gold lettering on it. Yeah, and this small batch barrel strength that we're drinking is just the clear bottle with the and they all have the flowers on them, right? So you kind of said earlier, Mike, you were talking about the design and everything. How did that grow out? Where did that come from? Who came up with that idea? What was the thought process behind that?
Yeah, I think it was all mutual. Danny, me, my wife, everyone was kind of thrown in different ideas. Well, and really we actually had now like an agency kind of give this a little bit more of a professional makeover. And they did a great job. But in the beginning, it was just Danny and I, and we didn't have, not like we're going to spend money on like an agency and getting it focus grouped. Right. I was like, dude, just throw font size 96p, New Times Roman, gold foil, embossed, and call it a day. And then at the time at my house, I got a lot of peonies. I like to garden and things like that. I had a lot of peonies and they were in full bloom. It's funny, they're in full bloom right now too. So kind of coincidental timing. I gotta get a picture with them. But peonies were in full bloom. It's my wife's favorite flower. Danny's wife loves them. So said, we just had the P and it was a little blank. Put the peony behind it. Give it a little something.
But make the P big enough so they could see it from the bar shelf.
Yeah,
but we did too. It wasn't just, we wanted it simple and minimalist and just clean and
it is. I mean, it's a very elegant design. I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of almost like a high-end wine bottle, I mean, when I look at that, it kind of has that, it's got the bottle. No, of course, nobody can see what I'm talking about, but people get online and check out your products. I mean, it's got the nice long skinny bottle. It's got the flower design on it. It's got the P on it, like you said. Just a really attractive looking bottle, man. It captures your eye when you see it. And I think, in this world where there's a lot of different products out there, I think you have to do everything you can to distinguish yourself. And I think you guys have done a really good job distinguishing your product by the way it looks.
Yeah, thank you. And we see it on the from a transaction perspective. I mean, when we switched, our old barrel strength was that white label that you see on our 4 grain with just a red foil P. And there was nothing wrong with it. It was just we kind of had this vision. Oh, each thing will do a different color P. And I kept thinking about Honest Tea because I really love that business, Honest Tea, that Coca-Cola bought. I don't know if the founders are really just sharp guy. It's a great book if you ever get a chance. Message in a Bottle. And I kind of looked at that. I was thinking the Honest Tea thing. I kind of was going that approach. And then I forget where the etched glass came up, but we kind of wanted to make that gold P. But when we switched over the barrel strength and upgraded some of the packaging, packaging is a big piece to this, especially at retail.
Sure.
So it made a big difference for sure.
Especially at barrel strength, you get like that really like that deep gold and brown, that you just kind of want to show through.
Yeah. I mean, the obviously the bourbon inside the bottle is very, very lovely. It's very accentuated through the bottle. You can still see the P, like you said. So now, what about like bartenders and things? What's been the reaction from the bar scene where you guys have your product? I'm assuming easy to grab. I mean, they probably like that.
Yeah, for me, it's again, we do really well. On premise in New York, New Jersey, Metro New York. That's you build an entire business just taking care of on premise in Manhattan. It's just a really tough market. We live here and it's tough.
Yeah.
But I think you have to get creative with your distributors, with your wholesalers. For us, we don't have boots on the ground. I don't have someone in Lower Manhattan that's going bar to bar to bar. we got lucky. We forged relationships with a lot of the Irish bars in the city. During COVID, Jameson, people needed empty barrels for outdoor dining. Jameson didn't have any. That's where they normally get them. In comes Penelope Bourbon. Got guys showing up, taking these things by the truckload, and that, and so we built up good relationships that way.
Nice.
But it's our biggest focus right now is on premise by far. I mean, that's really what we are honing in on, because I do think it's coming back like a tidal wave.
Yeah, definitely, man. And that's a great philosophy and a great strategy to have. And with a product like this and the attractiveness of it as well. I mean, I think it seems like it would go over well in a bar, and you're going to catch people's eyes as well. So that's pretty cool.
And I'll be honest with you, with our 4 grain, we're close to bullet on cost per ounce. And put it this way, we're not making 2-3 million cases of this stuff.
Gotcha.
And we're not that far away. Like, we decided on that 4 grain, I don't even know. We could be losing money on that product for all I know. We had to be competitive, because we got to be competitive on the speed rack. And we see it. We've got a great on-premise business, really starting to come back. I mean, it was obviously a little tricky in the last 12 months, but
yeah, no doubt. So
it's hard for doing our volume to be competitive with the pricing. And, out of the gate, we always said, like, what did we used to buy? What would we buy, when we were consumers? And there's a lot of good stuff on the shelves that not that high of a price.
Right.
So it was really important for us to be very competitive with our pricing, and it's so hard to compete with the big guys. But we, I think we're right there. But that was the intent with our pricing.
So with regard to your 80 proof, the white label, what kind of pricing retail wise are we looking at on that?
It's usually anywhere from $32.99 to $34.99. Some folks are $37.99, but generally we price it for $34.99.
Gotcha.
And then from what's it called, on the barrel strength, it's we price it for $59.99.
Okay.
Some folks are less. Like in Georgia, I see a lot for $54.99. So I've seen, so it's in that but kind of for our target of 59, we want to be sub 60 on the cast strength. It usually comes in cheaper than that.
Gotcha. That's great. I mean, that's great pricing, great strategy to have. Matt, we should probably talk about it.
Yeah, I was going to say, let's get back to it here.
Since we're almost at the end of round 2, damn it. I told you guys we do that, man.
I know we started talking about it too, and then we completely derailed the train per usual. That's all right.
All right, Matt. What are you picking up on this, man?
I get a big nose that's got a whiff of stone fruit. Pick up cherries, a little plum, some darker red fruits on there. I also get some dark chocolate and a salted caramel.
I love salted caramels.
Yeah. I picked that up especially after it sat in the glass a little bit and took some air with it. I pick up like a really strong nose of salted caramel with it.
I'm not getting that, but I'm definitely getting that chocolate, that you're talking about, Matt. The longer it's set in the glass, there's just more of a sweetness coming through on the nose. The thing that really surprised me though, that I really enjoyed, is just that the finish on it, because it does have a nice kind of a longer finish. I think the first drink surprised me because, we just tasted the 80 proof, and then we jumped up to, what's this, 115 or something? Is that right? Somewhere around there, 115.8. Is that what I've been looking at here?
Yeah, we bookend it. We did the lowest and then the highest.
You called us a gateway bourbon, but we forgot like the next stepping stone.
Yeah. So it was, had the 80 proofer that I just finished and took a sip of this 115, and it was initially like, wow, but it was great. It was a nice surprise, but the finish on it to me, comes across. I get a nice kind of a cinnamony finish, Matt. I don't know if you picked that up as well.
Yeah, you're reading my mind here, Mark. Nice heat, nice cinnamon, and a good flavorful finish. And it's not just like peppercorn and heat and spice on the mouth. It's got good flavor for the finish, and it's long, it's lasting. It's nice and warm.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that, Matt. So yeah, I really like this one. So we're actually at the end of round 2 already, believe it or not. I'm sorry that we waited until they were in round 2 to talk about our tasting notes on that. But Matt, what do you think? I mean, this, to me, I enjoy this. I really like this. I definitely, at the pricing that you're talking about, this is one I definitely pick up. There's no question about it. So
couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. Had to finish that last drink there. That was really good.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm glad I got the bottle in here with me. There, maybe a in-between pour. So, all right, guys, I'll tell you what. Let's take a quick break, get a word from our sponsor, and we'll be back with more with Mike and Danny from Penelope Bourbon. Everybody just sit tight. We'll be right back. Hey, Bourbon Lifers. We want to take just a second and tell you a little bit about Three Chord Whiskey. Three Chord's line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they call perfectly tuned taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them all together. After each blend is completed, the Three Chord team then applies their proprietary process of pyrolysis, that's a lot to say, isn't it? Which involves heating American oak to precise temperatures to release specific flavor and aroma compounds. Then they use another proprietary method called rhythmic disruption process, and that's more than just playing music to a bunch of barrels, which integrates all of those related compounds into the blended spirit. Finally, each small batch blend of Three Chord is evaluated by a trained sensory panel to ensure an uncommon depth of flavor, character, aroma, and a perfectly tuned taste in each bottle. With their introductory blended bourbon, their Amplify Rye, Strange Collaboration, which is a Pinot Noir finished Kentucky bourbon, their 94 rated 12-bar reserve, and the brand new highly coveted 15-year Kentucky bourbon they call the Whiskey Drummer, there's a lot of options available from Three Chord. Like the feeling you get when you hear that perfect song, you'll know that the Three Chord line of whiskeys are right from the first sip. They resonate with so much flavor, you'll want an encore. Find out more about Three Chord whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com. All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final session of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me, as always, hanging in there with me tonight, all the way through to the final end, is my good friend, Matt. Matt, what's going on, man?
Hey, not too much, Mark, man. We've made it this far. We better stick around, and you all better stick around for the exciting conclusion of the Bourbon Life Podcast this evening, because we have a couple great guests. We've got Mike Paladini and Danny Polise, the CEO and COO, also founders, respectively, of Penelope Bourbon. And we're going to just get right into it before we start talking all the way around and forget to circle back. We have got poured up your Toasted series. So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about that, and we'll get right into it before we go down the rabbit hole.
Well, the Toasted series was another kind of product that stemmed up with we're running low on inventory on certain things, and what do? Kind of similar to how we were looking at our small batch line. So we have a line that was called Private Select, and our Private Select was another cask strength offering, and this was really a custom blends. So we called Private Select super original. I know. Should have called it like the P series, like taking a route from BMW or something like that. But anyway, we did, we kind of look at this. This is a black label, gold foil. This is our kind of custom blend kind of product where, on the back of the label, we had all this kind of fun stuff, but this was using the best barrels that we had. So these were barrels that, we had connected with, maybe with MGP on, or came across them, whomever. And, we would just create different blends, or we would, work with folks that just wanted to come up with their own blend. And so it was a fun project, but it's very barrel dependent. So it's got to be the right barrels to kind of fall into this program. And we knew this was going to come in and out. And so we had started bottling these in-house back the second wave of these in early April. And so Danny and I, we said we needed something that we can do, because we're just, we've got this facility and I'll be honest, all we kept hearing, people are going crazy for toasted products. I mean,
anytime you say the word toasted.
I mean, I love Woodford's Double Oak. I mean, that's one of my favorites right now. I think it's absolutely delicious. I like, there's this Mick, the Michter's Rye Toasted. There's just a lot of really good toasted products out there. The Elijah Craig, there's different ones out there, but for us, we looked at it like an R&D setup. So we called Speyside, and we said, how do we even do, what do you think? And we've worked with Speyside on some other projects. And so the Toasted series, what you all have is like the first 4 barrels we started with, because I just wanted to send something to you all. So it's really, that's the early get-go. But The toasted series is there's chars 1 through 5, and a combination of medium plus heavy, and there's just all different combinations. And I suspect not until 2022 we'll even know if there's going to be here's the right char, here's the right toast blend. It's just kind of having fun with different chars and toasts.
And we're just filling barrels now at all different char levels and toasts and combinations and we just dumped our second batch of the toasted into new barrels and we adjusted the blend a little. So, it's really just kind of figuring it out on the fly, to be honest with you, and seeing what comes out. I think a lot of people, and including ourselves, don't really have a good gauge on like what a different toast and a different char does to bourbons. And we kind of want to, part of it, one, we want to like bring that to people, and two, we want to actually see for ourselves, what they do.
All right. So let me ask a couple questions here and clear a couple things up. So you mentioned that you work on this project with Speyside, and that for our listeners that may not know, that is a cooperage company, Speyside. They make super good barrels. Anytime we see or hear of something in Speyside, that it's something special. They do a great job with it. So y'all are working with Speyside. And then is your process that you are coming up with a different blend and then barreling in the toasted, or are you taking toasted barrels, making a blend and calling it the toasted blend? So I guess when
no, I know where you're going with that.
Maybe I didn't do that question
Danny's
justice.
doing math. If you see, Danny's like doing engineering and mathematics in his head right now.
So we're taking we're buying toasted and charred barrels, new toasted and charred barrels from Speyside, in different chars and different toasts, bringing them to our facility or warehouse, and then we're blending our 3 mash bills together, and then taking that blend and putting it into these new charred and toasted barrels.
Okay, so you're making your blend, you're experimenting with your blend, and then bringing in these unfilled toasted Speyside barrels and doing it all in house. Okay.
Yeah.
And we're still figuring out the capacity, but Speyside was like running this deal where it was like buy 3, get 1 free for a while. So I was like it was like a President's Day sale. I was like, give me 1 more of them. It was crazy. I'd never seen anything like that in the whiskey industry. It was like literally a President's Day sale. I loved it. And so we had started off with started off with 4. And then they ran that President's Day sale. I don't know if it was President's Day, but it was a cool sale.
It was right around that time.
But I called it their President's Day sale. They actually got a kick out. And then we did increase that to 16. And so each time we do fill them, it's the same blend across all of them. So it's not an individual blend per barrel. So the blend that was in the first 4 that I believe we all sent to you all, that was part of that original blend. It's basically small batch barrel strength. And the next 16, which we just did, just we just filled those not even about a week ago. And so we're just starting to have fun with it. But it's, to me, it's all about the flavor profile. And again, I think if we like it, and I'll be honest, it's just interesting seeing the combination of char, toast, and whiskey. Because I think a lot of these toasted products, I'm not 100% sure, but I think a lot of the toasted products are really just toasted barrels, no char. And I might be mistaken. I'm not 100% sure. So that's where I think the char could have an interesting influence.
Yeah, I know when we talked to, because we had Jackie Zykin on the show last year, and we talked to her about the Old Forester 1910, which is one of my favorites, because it's a double barreled as well. And Matt, that's the one, if I remember correctly, they lightly toasted that one, but then they almost incinerated the barrel. Is that what she said? Like almost.
Yeah, I want to say you're right. Like the toast is very light, but then
very light toast and
char the thing until they basically have to like tape it back together.
Yeah, I mean, she said it was like almost a minute. I think she said it was like a minute in the burner. I mean, it was crazy. And then we had Chris Morse from
where Woodford was the other way around, right?
It was opposite. Yeah,
heavy toast and then very light
heavy
char.
Toast and, yes.
It's so interesting hearing you guys say this. So here's a great example. Well, we're fine. And this is just from the past 60 days. So we've had some barrels. Sometimes we get retailers in New Jersey, they just buy them when they come to the facility. So our R&D ends there when they just take them. They're like, we want it. And I'm like, all right, whatever. We just have to get a new one. But I'll be honest with you. I think you said Old Forester was doing a crazy high char, low toast.
Correct.
So we filled a bunch of barrels last week. And this the one that literally got taken by our Massachusetts distributor today was a char 5, which is obviously up there,
right.
and medium toast.
Okay.
So we're kind of in that wheelhouse, and I thought it was exceptionally balanced. It was very good, but it's in that ballpark of what you were mentioning. And then on the flip side with the double oak, I've noticed the lower the char, the higher the toast, and give it longer. Maybe 90 days, 120 days. Could be longer than that too. I don't know. I mean,
that's the longer play.
It's the longer play, more balance. I think.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so it was fun to have them on, separately and talk to them. But Chris obviously is the master distiller for all of Brown-Forman. And even we had Jackie on first, and then we were talking to Chris, and he was talking about how weird it was. Like they were setting off smoke alarms and everything when they were doing the Old Forester, because these barrels were almost disintegrated. I mean, we just burned the crap out of them. But 1910, it's one of my favorite, it's a kind of a dessert bourbon for me, but absolutely love the 1910. So anyway, little tidbit of information. Hey, maybe you guys can use that.
Just writing that down.
Taking notes on that. Heavy char.
I wonder how long they kept it in there for, but I bet it was like not that long, because you char the hell out of the barrel. It's just like that bourbon touches it and it's like.
Well, I tell you what, I'll go back and listen. And
I want to say it was in the neighborhood of like 42 to 47 seconds.
It was a long char. I couldn't believe. Yeah. I mean, she said it was like the interior was almost disintegrated. And I was like, okay. And I thought, okay, maybe she's just saying that for emphasis. But then we had Chris on the show, and he was like, guys, we were like setting off smoke alarms. And he's like, I thought we were going to have to call the fire department. And we were burning these barrels up to make that 1910. So kind of an interesting little scenario they had there.
That is really cool. No, it's really interesting.
Yeah. So this is something you're actually making. So this is a product you've got put out, right? So you're doing this at a little bit of a time and just selling individual barrels. Is that how it's working, or
purely right now it's R&D? I mean, we just started filling these 45 days ago. But I think for us, we don't know a lot about it yet. I think we're still learning. I suspect, I think what we're trying to figure out is what is that right balance for, even if it's in our flavor profile for barrel strength, that 4 grain. So the idea is right now it's purely experimental, and it's set up where if someone loves it and wanted a barrel and it's available, sure. But really for us, we look at it as just R&D.
Gotcha.
We kind of ran it on a super small scale first, just to make sure we weren't like just burning barrels of bourbon, So the small scale, I mean, every one of them was good in their own way at different durations. Like one of them was like a 10-day turn, one of them was a 30-day turn. So they were all super drinkable, and they all had good flavor. It's just really like now honing the process and like figuring out what's like that perfect balance.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, makes perfect sense. So now the combination of the mash bills on this, I saw something. I guess it was on the marketing flyer, and I think it was for this bourbon. But you've got the 3 different mash bills. Is one like 21% rye mash bill, and one's like 45% wheat. Is that right?
Yes.
So a really higher wheat mash bill, and then a fairly high rye mash bill, and then a 99% corn. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. So we're like mellow corn.
Some of it tastes like that.
It's funny. This is a great story though. We created that original blend on that trip in the summer of 2018 at MGP. Every product we've released has been using those 3 mash bills. We did a limited rosé cast finish, toasted series, private select, barrel strength. The only exception is that small batch 01 of our barrel strength that had that malted barley bourbon. That is the only deviation. And people ask, why aren't you doing a rye, this and that? I'm like, got our hands full just with these 3 mash bills.
We really
There's so much to continue to go down with this. that
Gotcha.
I think something about being hyper focused is helpful.
Well, I was going to ask you, going back to that small batch, because I think in the marketing info, the sheets that we got, I think it says it's a blend of 4 mash bills. Is that right? So is it actually 4 mash bills because you added okay? Because on the label on the bottle, it still said 3, which I guess because you used the same labeling. Okay, I got you. Nope, I caught that earlier. No, that's fine. It wasn't like, hey, I'm trying to call you guys out for this, but I was like, I just wanted to make sure that I read that right and that we had the right information. So it is, the small batch is actually a blend of 4 mash bills, not just the 3. Okay. Oh, that makes sense.
So here's a question. Since you all stepped foot into MGP the first day, and I'm assuming that's when the concept, the idea, and maybe even the blend for the original Penelope came about on that first day, how have you found your blending, and like how have you found Penelope to really change and take on more characteristics through your products from that first day when you walked in to the stuff that you're putting forward now, and how you're blending and the taste and the profiles and just the philosophy? Like, where have you found the character for your blends going from that first day that you walked in?
That's Danny. Can I take the first part of this question?
Yeah.
More of like, there's a kind of a interesting, this is something I was actually going to bring up earlier, and then I'll turn it over to you because I know you got an interesting perspective on the profile. Just higher level, how we always viewed how we wanted to start this business was, again, we're bootstrapping this. So like, I think we wanted to build the brand on younger juice. We just wanted to, like, we kind of had look, this is an industry that's built on being patient. And so I think for us, we said, let's start with 2 to 3 year old bourbon. And, let's, as we grow, we want to make sure that we're continually building for the future. And, barrel strength, as a great example, like, is our target is that's an all 6-year product.
Mm-hmm.
So,
nice.
And what's exciting and what we're excited about is what started at batch 1, which was like scorchingly hot. 2 years, it's like sandpaper, and it was a tricky blend. It was harder, we didn't really understand the blending process or our process in batch 1. But our testament is we always want to show progression on our age statement. And so what's funny, batch 6 was 43 months. Now batch 7, which we're getting into, I just think we missed like 48 months by like a month. I think there's like 4 barrels that are 47 months.
Yeah.
But,
It was.
For us, a majority of those barrels are probably 5.5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, for us, like when we're talking like 4.5 years for Penelope Bourbon, we're talking like ancient Rome in Penelope Bourbon internal lingo, because it is. That's a progression. And I think we wanted to respect the process and build the brand on that, show that trajectory and show how that moves. And with our 4 grain, we're trying to get that to a 48-month product, all 4-year barrel strength, all 6-year. And so we're excited for next year and the future years, which is cool. But that didn't really answer your question, Matt. I just wanted to kind of philosophically highlight that, because I think that maybe was a good segue for Danny.
I was going to say, like you said, our first blend was 6 barrels. We didn't know what the hell we were doing. And we were just like learning our mash bills. We knew we had something. We knew we had something we liked. And when we went to that first blend, it didn't come out exactly the way we wanted it. So we just kept looking into it. Why is it not coming out the way we wanted it? Then we went to 12 barrels, 15 barrels, 21 barrels, and started like really diving into it. We used to kind of dump our mash bills into 3 separate tanks and then start blending them together, kind of on the fly, because we were contracting it out. So we'd be in the bottling facility and working on our blend that day. And what we've evolved to is like looking at the batches before we would buy them, looking at each barrel before we blend them, profiling each barrel into different buckets per se, and like, that's what Mike was saying, every product is these 3 mash bills, because there's so many different variations of these 3 mash bills, depending on, where it aged, which warehouse, even like we're starting to
understand the season. Like, what month was it distilled? What month are we dumping? Spring barrels are very different than our fall barrels. And it changes the profile of what our blends are going to be. And this is all stuff that we're kind of just growing on as we really, gain the education of what we're doing.
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, it does make sense. And Mike, going back to what you were saying about continually moving up your age statement, that shows a lot of restraint and I think a lot of trust in your product now, because it sounds like you have older barrels. You could just start blending those, but you have to sit some of them back so that you can keep progressing that age statement, because it'd be really easy to take a blend that just is kind of lacking in a little something and just throw in some older mature barrels there, or do something to doctor it up. But to sit back and to see the vision coming through the future and to know where you're at and where you want to go with your blending and with your age statement and holding some back, I think that's a smart decision. It's mature.
Yeah, no, that's not easy too, but I sampled batch 7, our blend. I mean, just being able to try the blend before the run is always nice. And knowing that we've sipped every barrel is also nice. But batch 7, I was excited about it because it's that, that our mashes, it's just kind of interesting seeing it. It's almost like a vintage a little bit to some regard, but we're so familiar with the profile, just seeing it really start to come of age a little bit. So, it's a work in progress, but, I think we'll get there, and it's exciting.
Yeah, no doubt. Matt, let's we did it again.
I know we did, didn't we?
We did. So let's talk about this toasted barrel strength, man.
So
what are you getting?
It took me a little while to put my finger on it, but you know what this nose really smells like to me?
No, what?
Baklava.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Honey,
Gotcha.
Let me break it down. It's got honey, like a caramelized honey from the toastiness coming through. I pick up a little bit of nuts, like baklava would have sometimes almond, or not almond, excuse me, but pecan or something, like a toasted nut on there. A little bit of the flaky phyllo dough crust or whatever the baklava might be. But baklava just really rings through. At first, and there's like a little bit of apricot in it as well, but the toastiness really comes through with, I think, the caramelized honey aroma to me. But it's just baklava.
Very nice. That's much better than me, because I was going to say I get the toastiness, but I also get like bubble gum. And I know that sounds weird, but I get that, kind of that, me, Matt, that Topps baseball.
I agree with you on this one, Mark. I usually don't pick up bubble gum, but I do with you on this.
Okay. All right. And I love that. I love it when I pick that up on a bourbon, especially, and it's usually going to be a higher proof. And this one, Matt, you got the bottle, but I think this one's like 114.
113.8 is what we got.
It's funny, Mark, that you said the bubblegum thing, because I don't pick up on it that often, but when we blended this batch, it was only 3 barrels, and one of the barrels was just like all bubble gum, and I'm running around. I'm like, do you smell this? Smell this. Like, I'm like, how much is that bubble? Like, the whole barrel was just super bubble gum.
Yeah. And I love that, and some people, you always worry when you say that to somebody that's blended or they're making their juice, when you say, oh, it reminds me of bubble gum, you don't want somebody to be like, wait, what? My bourbon, So
no, I love nothing. There was nothing else that could ever come to anybody's mind but that when they smelled that.
Dude, you tell me this tastes like Big League Chew, I'm gonna love you.
Well, I tell you, for me, it's those Topps baseball card packs, because when I was a kid, I loved collecting baseball cards, and Topps was the brand to buy. And you'd always open it up, and you had that gum that was crumbly, and it was covered in that white.
Snapped.
It snapped. Yeah, it was covered in white. But I always chewed it anyway, because it was there, and I love the smell of the baseball cards, because they smelled like cardboard and that bubble gum. But that bubble gum just reminds me of being a kid. That smell. So that's when I picked that up on a bourbon. I absolutely love it. So that stood out to me for sure. Matt, what about the palate on this one and the finish on it?
The palate is where more of that apricot comes through to me. And a lot of the toast, the honey, caramelized honey, a little bit of the pecan is coming through as well in the nice toastiness and the warmth. But it doesn't drink as hot as 113.8. That's for certain. It's very, very approachable to the point of probably being a little dangerous.
Dangerous. Yeah, I can definitely see this one dangerous. And I like the finish on this one too, because I still get that kind of spiciness. A little bit of oak coming through from that, I guess, probably from the toast.
Yeah.
But still that spiciness, that sweetness, and that combination of sweetness and spicy, man. It just I really like the finish on this one, and it does linger for a while, which is something I really, really enjoy, man. So very, very good job on this one for sure, man. So
what was the on the back of the bottle? Is the char in the toast?
I think
this
is, I don't know, Matt. You have
char number 2, toast heavy.
Toast heavy.
Yeah, baby.
Those were the originals.
OG.
One of the first 4.
That's awesome. So guys, let's talk about the future. We're at the end. If you guys don't mind to hang out just for a few more minutes though, because all right. So kind of talk about the future and where you guys are headed. So what does that look like for Penelope Bourbon?
Well, we have some new family members on the way.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah.
Our wives are rock stars.
Yeah,
I mean, I think one of the big things for us was the barrel progression, shoring up inventory. What's interesting, even from 2018, when we first started looking at our, barrels to now, is, the availability of barrels has gotten gone.
Right.
Especially some of those wheated bourbons from MGP have really just disappeared off the face of the earth, which is why we try to figure out a kind of a longer, we needed to shore up aged barrels, because we did, at some point you have to get serious with either new fills, custom distillate, whatever you were going to do. So I think for us was
Right.
let's shore up at least some aged barrels for a little while to hunker in while, kind of continually progress. But I think big for us, really, it's just slow and steady. I think when we first started growing, it was awesome to kind of move into a new market. And, I think when, you start selling it, the big thing is making sure you have product to back it up. And I think 2022 and beyond, I think we just kind of continue to grow slow and steady.
Nice.
There's no rush. I think we've always looked at this as a marathon. And so, yeah.
There you go. Now, Mike, I liked it when you did your little hand motion there, because you looked like Tommy Boy when he was doing JoJo the Indian Circus Boy. So you're like all excited, all excited. But no, that's great, man.
JoJo, great movie, by the way. That's a good reference. For those that can't see it, I think this is audio only, but I'll have to do the JoJo the Circus Clown next time I'm in Kentucky.
Oh my gosh! So I'm just curious, guys, from your standpoint. Well, I'm going to ask this question because this was on my mind earlier. In the future, any chance you guys are going to you got your DSP now? Any chance you guys are going to be doing your own stuff, or will you continue to source, or what's the thought process behind that?
What do you think, Danny? I'll say yes, just because I'm always like, yeah, Danny's going to figure something out. No.
Hey, Danny, you're an engineer, man. Figure it out, dude. Come on.
You built a bridge. I can't figure this out.
I don't know. I would love to try. So, be around, being around it and stuff like that. Like curiosity killed the cat kind of thing. But I don't know. Not anytime. There's so much to do with the blending side of it right now.
Yeah.
It's funny though. I had something that came up while we were just talking tonight. I think if you were to do try our own thing, it'd be something. It'd definitely not be bourbon. Oh, and it wouldn't be vodka or rum. I mean, it would be maybe like you mentioned some malts or just something kind of off the kind of beaten track. I think.
I mean, I have plans for just for shits and giggles. I laid out the distillery, a small distillery, just to make sure I knew how to do it. Plus, we needed to know how to do it to get our license. But
here's a suggestion I would have. Just throwing this out there, because we were just down in Nashville and we're talking with Jeff and Jenny Pennington down there
before, I think. Yeah.
Great folks.
There, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool
Davidson
spot.
Reserve. Yeah. Very, very cool, man. And Jeff was just talking about the fact that when they were really figuring out their layout for their distillery and how they're going to do things, how many people from Kentucky and even in Tennessee that were willing to work with them and help them figure out what they needed to do and how they needed to put things together. So I would definitely say, I mean, I know you guys are up there in Jersey, but still, man, I think it would, if you can reach out, obviously you're not shy to pick up the phone and call people, Mike. So
my wife says I'm like not a pest, but I'm like kind of a pest.
Yeah.
No, but sometimes you need to be. You got to reach out to people.
I completely agree with that.
That brings up a good point. I mean, everybody in this industry has been so amazingly friendly, helpful, like no other industry I've ever worked in.
Yeah. That's what we hear from everybody. And it's really cool. Mm-hmm. I'm a lifelong Kentuckian and I'm just proud of what we have here. I mean, I know other states are getting into it. And it's great to see that we enjoy having different people from different states on the show. But it's always great when you hear people that have gone back to Kentucky and some of the big guys that seem like they're always willing and able to help and, willing to give ideas and assist however they can. And Matt, you have the great quote about this, right?
Oh, the rising tide raises all ships, right? That's what we keep hearing from everybody in this industry.
Yeah, exactly right.
It's actually a great analogy. Yeah.
That's a good,
is that a metaphor or an analogy?
I don't know. A simile? No,
similar. But I really like that. I think that's very true. I mean, we have asked for so much like input, help, introductions. And I mean, everyone's been so supportive.
Yeah, you guys need to jump across there and go see Lisa Wicker. Is that her name?
Yeah.
No.
Lisa Wicker.
Yeah, Lisa Roper Wicker at Widow Jane.
I know we should. That's like right over the river too.
Yeah, you guys go meet with her sometime. Man, I tell you what, we had her on the show and it was like she is probably one of the best master distillers that very few people really know of. Mm-hmm. It's amazing what she's done in her career and where she's been. Super sweet person though. She lives here in Bardstown and she lives up there during the week and works, and then she drives back home to Bardstown over the weekend. I know, and it's crazy, but she lives up there all week and works, and then she drives back to Bardstown every weekend. But she's a great person, and I think you guys go visit her, man. She'd be a great asset to have available too, man. So what's been the toughest? What's been the hardest part of this journey for you guys so far? I'm just curious. What was the roughest part? What's been so far?
I mean, for me, I think it's a really good question. I mean, there was a lot of challenges in the first year. I think anytime you start a business with one of your best friends, I mean, it's hard.
Danny.
No. Look, here's where it's going. But here's where it's going. I think one of the biggest reasons why we've been successful is because Danny and I work so well together. Now there were some moments in those first 6 months where you're just figuring out like, what's your role? Like we've been friends forever, but we never like professionally have worked together.
Right. Yeah. Great.
And me and him are like polar opposites, which actually works out really well. But we're at the end of the day, we're polar opposites. So like just learning that.
Yeah, sure.
Usually most new companies fail because if it's the founders don't click.
Right.
That was I didn't think it was a challenge. I think it was just something that we were, and now we're just in a rhythm where we just go.
Nice.
Yeah. What do you think, Danny?
I was going to say, probably the pressure, just, batch over batch. Like, Mike said, we're bootstrapping this, and like when we do batches, like everything just has to go right. So it's like, are people going to like this batch just as much or better? Like, are the bottles going to arrive? Like, just making sure you don't ruin, thousands and thousands of gallons of bourbon.
Yeah, I can see where that could be a little bit of pressure. No doubt about that, man. So, well, guys, where can people find information about you guys? Where can they find the brand, and where can they find Penelope Bourbon, social media, and all that stuff?
Yeah, well, one last thing I didn't mention is we are launching in Kentucky in September.
Man. Very
Excellent.
nice.
Yes.
Nice.
that
Congratulations.
that was something we were real excited about. So I just wanted
Nice
to
for Bourbon
call
Heritage Month.
Yeah,
That's
and
right.
we're actually going to be at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival.
All right.
So-
I'll be there for sure. Matt, I don't know if you're going or not, but I am.
We're
I
excited.
hope
about
I am.
it. They let two guys from Jersey in the. I think I had to show them a fake ID that I was from Kentucky or something. But they let us in.
Hey,
No,
but now here's the thing. They changed the name this year. It's just called the Bourbon Festival. They don't call it, for some reason, they dropped Kentucky. Of course, the state map or the picture of Kentucky is still on there, but they've changed it now to officially just the Bourbon Festival. So
see, and then next year they're going to be like, remember the Facebook? They dropped
that's right. Yeah, that's right. We're gonna drop the. It's just gonna be Bourbon Festival. That's right.
But no, we're on Instagram and all the social media sites at Penelope Bourbon, PenelopeBourbon.com. We're available up and down the East Coast. We're in Tennessee and select markets, but we've got a store locator. So check us out. Follow us. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah, and you guys are really big on Penelope. You guys are big on Instagram, man. I mean, there are a lot of people out there that are putting your bottles up there. I mean, that's how I was familiar with you guys, was the fact that I saw your bottles everywhere on Instagram. So you guys were definitely on my radar. Wanted to get you on the show, and then you reached out to me, Mike, and it was like, yeah, this is great. This will work out perfect, man. So we appreciate that. So guys, before we wrap it up here, anything else you wanna add to let our listeners know?
No, just thank you guys for having us on. It was obviously awesome. Just nice meeting you guys, and thank you again for letting us join and share a little bit about our company and story and products. So we appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you guys being here. Danny, how about you, man? Anything?
Kind of same thing. We love just hanging out, chatting bourbon. It's actually nice to do this at the end of the day, running around all day and stuff. So just kind of be able to sit back and talk about what we're doing is amazing.
Yep. Great.
And drinking.
And drinking. Yeah, there you
absolutely.
go. And drinking. So yeah, no doubt about that. Matt, anything you want to add before we wrap it up and close it out?
Hey, gentlemen, thanks for taking the time to sit down with us and our listeners and go through everything that it takes to start a bourbon company. It's been just super interesting and really insightful to hear your story. And I'm really appreciative of what you all are bringing to the table. And I've enjoyed all three of these expressions thoroughly. So you all are doing a really great job. I wouldn't worry too much about any pressure being on you. I think you've handled it really well.
Yeah. Thank you, man.
Yep, definitely. I agree with that. And before we get out of here, I'm going to thank our sponsors again, the Stave Restaurant, located on McCracken Pike. You guys come down, man. We'll hit the Stave Restaurant out there. It's right beside Castle and Key. I don't know if you guys have ever been there.
We've been there a bunch.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome.
We absolutely love what they're doing out there. Chef Kyle Klacka, man, he's just doing some great stuff. The owners, Rebecca and Eric Burnworth, just really good people. So we appreciate their sponsorship. And then 3 Chord Bourbon as well. We really appreciate their sponsorship as well. Ari Sussman, Neil Giraldo, the owner, just a couple of great guys, man. So we appreciate everything that they do to help us out as well. And with that said, I'm going to wrap it up and send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the bourbon life.